If you could just read Yankee Dollar, the episode title, and the synopsis real quick. Just
All right.
So yeah.
Okay, Yankee Dollar, Miami Vice, Season 2, Episode 14. When Crockett learns drug smuggling led to a former lover's death, he and Tubbs take confiscated cocaine to lure the men responsible. My name's Tim Davis. In 1986, I'm at Vassar College. I am a senior. Well, I think I was pretty deeply troubled. Like, I couldn't see myself actually as a citizen of the world. And I covered it up by trying to be cool. I smoked a lot of weed. I played in a relatively popular college band called the Midnight Jam. I definitely tried to project whatever my version or vision of cool was. I had always looked up to John, loved him. He was one of my two heroes. He was funny and he was cool.
So I'm 9 years older than Tim. My parents got divorced when I was, 17. I would escape to Timmy's house when he was a little kid.
I remember he was in college and he came to kind of hang out with me and my younger brother, Nick. And he was doing a photo essay. I mean, I think he was supposed to be babysitting us, and he took us with him photographing piles of dog poop in New York City.
He was 9, and he had this voice like this. He had this sort of truck driver's voice. And I just remember him wearing this long denim jacket, and then we're walking down, West 4th Street or something. And he would say, "Oh, there's some great dog shit over here."
I mean, I remember that thinking like, that is the coolest thing. Fucking photographing poop in New York. Oh, I want to do that someday.
I think it's a good series. I don't have those pictures anymore.
I guess it was 1984 or 1985 when John was hired as a staff writer on Miami Vice. And I remember being excited that my cousin was on a hit TV show.
It's my first real job in TV.
It was a popular show, I think, almost from the moment it aired. I mean, commercials started playing that kind of cheesy 80s music and, with the wide lapels and the T-shirts with the white jackets, that was the Don Johnson look.
It was a big hit show, and people would have Miami Vice parties and stay home on Friday night to watch it.
So he calls me to tell me that he's written an episode that he's really proud of. I don't think he gave me any specifics other than, I think it's a great episode and you might want to watch it with your friends. But he had definitely said enough to make me excited to all right, I'm going to tell some friends about this. We'll make a little party of it.
I thought it would be a nice surprise for Tim.
So there was a gathering. I remember being kind of surprised at how many people showed up and how excited everybody was. I do remember just sort of some general anxiety, and I have a feeling I might have been walking around. And certainly during commercials, which, remember commercials when you had to sit through commercials? I might have been up and pacing. The episode opens.
Well, the story, like all Miami Vice stories, was that a drug deal went down, but it had a good hook. Sonny Crockett, the Don Johnson character, doesn't have anything to do. And he calls a woman he's been seeing who's a stewardess. Now you would probably call her a flight attendant. And he's going to spend the night with her. And then she had some kind of medical situation where it turned out she had swallowed a bunch of condoms full of cocaine.
We're in the morgue, and the coroner is pronouncing her dead.
Found a ruptured balloon in the upper GI tract.
So then Crockett and Tubbs head to the stewardess's apartment because it's time to find out what happened to her. And then this other character shows up.
You looking for someone? Who are you?
And he's sort of a sleazy-looking character from the moment we see him. Crockett and Tubbs know this guy's bad news too. So then he takes off and a chase ensues. And of course, because it's Miami, takes them to the beach. They throw him down in the waves and they're starting to punch him. And then they say, I think Crockett, maybe the Don Johnson character, starts shaking. He says, "What's your name, punk?"
Okay, pal. Let's start again. Who are you?
And the guy says,
Tim Davis, Sarah's brother.
there was initial glee hysterics.
What looks to be the drug dealer, but is really the stewardess's brother. Crockett and Tubbs tell him that, you know, his sister's dead.
Sarah died last night.
And he says,
Where's the body?
There's not a moment of sadness, as I remember it. This guy is only concerned with recovering the body, which of course tips Crockett and Tubbs off that something's amiss with this guy.
and Crockett punches him in the mouth. I didn't want it to be a happy birthday, Tim Davis. You know, where's the drama? Was he embarrassed?
Yeah, it was a bummer. It was a bummer. I was like, that's not what I invited everybody around to see. That was not what I was hoping for. Like, I'd gotten all these people together to watch something that my cousin had done, and I was proud of him, and I felt like he had kind of punched me.
Tim Davis.
Unfortunately, things don't get much better for this Tim Davis character.
As a criminal, you are a complete bust out. You're a mess.
And as you can imagine, people are frickin' eating this up at the party. Just loving it.
And you aren't smart enough to cut yourself a deal and give us the rest. You know what? You need to go to jail for stupidity.
Rico, I don't feel like cutting deals today.
I probably felt in some way like that scumbag. Like I am that scummy. That's probably why it hurt even more. Like, fuck, did John just reveal something about me? Did he just hold a mirror up and show me who I really am?
No. I'm not dealing with the errand boy anymore.
You are the errand boy, or were.
I think he should have been happy I did a good job. Oh, shit, yes. It's a good scene. It's a really good scene.
She wanted to buy this car. $5,000, that's it.
I'm getting goosebumps. I think he was a central figure to the episode. You know, you'd have to be like, wow, he didn't name the waiter Tim Davis.
I'll cut you in on my piece of this.
You know, and then, to add insult to injury, Timmy Davis is unceremoniously killed off halfway through the episode, off screen.
Maybe you should have saved a busload of school children or something from later on in the episode. That's always exciting.
The Mankwitzes are famed for their wit.
Politics? You couldn't get into politics. You couldn't get in anywhere. You couldn't even get in the men's room at the Astor.
It's about time the piano realized it has not written a concerto.
I've always loved you.
And I have always known.
Old age. It's the only disease, Mr. Thompson, that you don't look forward to being cured of.
There's a lot of, self-deprecating humor and just straight up deprecating humor.
If you read any biographies about my grandfather, Herman Mankiewicz, who wrote Citizen Kane, he was a fixture at the Algonquin Round Table with Dorothy Parker and all these great wits of the time. So being witty and sharp and cutting was a real asset.
I was reading a book the other day.
Reading a book?
Yes, it's all about civilization or something. A nutty kind of a book. Do you know that the guy says that machinery is going to take the place of every profession?
Oh, my dear. That's something you need never worry about.
And then who that wit was turned on were the people closest to you. And frankly, I think making fun of each other is sport for the Mankiewicz family.
The Mankiewicz family doesn't hug. We caress each other with one-liners, which is it's a good line.
Baby? I actually have a question for John. At what point in the writing of the episode where you created this character who you knew was sort of a scumbag character, at what point did you think, I think I might want to name that character Tim Davis?
I knew the name was going to be the button on the teaser.
Did you just think like I would get a kick out of it, seeing my name?
I thought you would get a kick. I thought you would get a kick out of it.
The pain of being made fun of by a beloved, hero of a cousin, that did linger.
Yeah.
And we do come from a family where words are used to poke and prod and hurt.
Mm-hmm.
And that we were taught very early on, you don't show that hurt, you just come back with sharper words of your own. And I felt like you played the game really well, and I never felt like I did. Yeah. Not that I'm because I'm better or kinder, but because I wasn't as facile at coming up with put downs.
But from my point of view, it's really just the name.
But what would your therapist say? Seriously, what would a psychoanalyst say?
Well, most of the ones I've been to would say, "Why don't you use my name?"
John's dad was my mom's older brother. He was a great storyteller, but emotionally it was a little bit hard to. Am I being fair here?
No. I mean, this is a guy who, when my parents split up, he had a girlfriend, and he told me they were going to get married, and I said, "You going to have kids?" And he said, "Well, we might adopt. I've always wanted to have a family." And they did adopt, and a couple of kids, and which I found out from somebody else. And I said, "What are their names?" And he said, "Oh, we're calling them Sandy and Jane." And I said, "Well, Dad, you already have a daughter named Jane." And he said, "Yeah, you think she'll be upset?" And I said, "Yeah, I think she'd be real upset." And he said, "Well, fuck." He said, "We've already done all this paperwork." He said, "What if I just white out the E and we call her Jan?" That's her name.
And that's her name. So you can see how the progeny of someone like that could be capable of naming a character.
Or completely incapable.
Or, yeah. I will say John was a real important connector to my mom, who I lost when I was 11, who was a beloved figure for him. And
But I just got to say, it's before, it's before and after for our family, for me. So.
Of her death?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I mean, there's life before Josie died and life after. So, I mean, she was something else. She's pretty great. Go ahead.
July 25th, 1974. Well, it was an incredibly happy day for most of it. We had just driven back across the country from California. We'd been living out here for a year, and we had a really nice family time traveling across the country. My parents had sublet our apartment in Greenwich Village, and then I think the landlord had found out about it, so we were getting evicted. The family game plan was my dad was going to take Nick, and my mom instead was taking me to look at apartments. And I remember we spent, good 4 or 5 hours uptown, Upper West Side, looking at apartments. And there was one apartment we went to where there was a woman that was renting the apartment, and she got a little snippy with me a couple times, But my mom, she sort of stuck up for me, and I think we hustled out of there knowing that was definitely not one for us. I definitely remember that feeling, feeling protected, feeling like I had a mom who looked after me, who stuck up for me. We went back downtown, and she took me bowling. It was kind of a little way to reward for me for just being sort of a good soldier all day. And I bowled my highest score, 168. 11-year-old, was pretty good. And I do remember telling her at one point that I was doing it for her. On our way from the bowling alley, we were holding hands, and we had just had a great day. We got to the corner of Charles and West 4th Street, and 2 taxis came racing down these little, very narrow streets. And they both went through stop signs. They hit each other. One of the cabs spun around. And what I remember is seeing the yellow flashes. And I remember pulling away from her and being startled and running down West 4th, and then got like halfway down the block. And then I turned around and I saw her body laid out on the sidewalk. So that's about it for that day. As someone who's maybe feeling survivor's guilt, you might think like, oh shit, I should have reacted faster. I should have pulled her out of the way. That was a detail that was probably important to me because it kind of locked in that feeling of shit, that, feeling of a piece of shit. And that, to bring it back to Miami Vice, that Miami Vice might have been like, oh yeah, that's right. I am a piece of shit. And just even considering that as an option, I think that's maybe one of the reasons I might have been so pained by that moment.
The only part that popped for me was, what's your name, punk? Tim Davis. I mean, it was kind of brutal that the brother, that would be the first thing he would say. But we had to make that point. So, Tim was a sacrifice of exposition. Now I feel bad.
You do sort of put yourself in that person. It's got his name. He's gonna see himself in there, and it could be like a little It could be disturbing.
I do appreciate having an opportunity to talk openly about it, and it's part of what I do with my life now. We provide free resources to everyone whose life has been impacted by mental health conditions. I started off as a volunteer, and there was a part-time job, and it just slowly became obvious that there were things that I could do that would be useful for them and useful for me. So I did start sharing more openly about my stuff, and especially the trauma. And so I'll talk about that now. I'll talk about trauma very openly to 7th graders, 8th graders, 10th graders. And I make very clear that I don't want the kids to feel bad for me. I'm not a victim. I don't see myself as a victim. I see myself as a survivor. And I see them as survivors, even if they don't quite realize it yet. There's no trauma competition, right? It's all damaging and disruptive to our lives, whatever, if it's a divorce or a parent dying or whatever, or there's abuse. And I'll talk about that and say, like, we can all get through this stuff. And a lot of times it will start by being able to be open and honest about it to a friend, to a parent, to a counselor, to a therapist.
There was a character, the real drug dealer was a woman named Lydia Sugarman, who was, a mom from my neighborhood in Long Island. And that was just a tip of the hat. And I heard from a kid in the neighborhood that she was really pissed off that a drug dealer had been named after her. And I thought everyone who watched it and heard their name would be excited by it. So I guess I've just destroyed a couple of lives in that one script. I didn't mean to. I don't tell anyone that I worked on Miami Vice anymore. No, because they think I'm 100 years old.
I didn't play him as a bad guy. I never think of my characters as a bad guy, and I've killed people in movies. I'm always a child molester or some kind of murderer or killer. I don't look like a killer.
But John,
I did not mean to hurt you.
I know that, and I do appreciate the opportunity to really totally clear the air, and I realize how ridiculous I kind of sound getting hurt about something that really could have been cool and a lot of other people might have experienced as like a fun, cool thing to share with their friends. So you're gonna name a character, a heroic character, Tim Davis, right? Isn't that what we just settled on?
We'll do that. I hope it clears.
Well, that actually leads to my final question, which is sort of about the journey.
Yeah.
And before I ask it, I just want you to think really hard before you answer.
Okay.
All right?
All right.
So the question is, what's your name, chump?
I'm Tim fucking Davis.